Is this working? Good evening, everybody. Thanks very much for coming. Sorry to keep you waiting. We're actually still waiting for Richard Robinson, who's such a busy entrepreneur that he's late. So we're just going to start without him. I've tried to prime these two gentlemen with a lot of wine so that their tongues are loose. We'll have to force Richard to drown in glass when he arrives here for the same effect. Thank you very much to Cheung Business, a graduate school of business, for hosting and co-organizing this event. I just want to, Cheung have been kind enough to work with Danwei.org on a number of events and advertising projects, and I'd really like to thank them very much for taking the risk to advertise on such a dodgy website. In order to thank them, I would like to try and get everyone to remember their name, which is difficult because it's not in Pinyin. If you don't know, their name means Yangtze River Business School, right? But they write it in Hong Kong weird style. So you say Cheung Kong Business School, Graduate School of Business. Cheung Kong, Cheung Kong, Cheung Kong, Cheung Kong, Cheung Kong, Cheung Kong. My terms are wrong, but Cheung Kong, please remember it. They're our wonderful sponsors. I'd also like to thank Ringer, the Swiss media company who I also happen to work for, who've helped with organization and administration, and their publication City Weekend. And I'd like to thank Standards Group, the design company who designed the Danwei Plenary Session bags. So, enough bullshit. The aim of tonight's discussion is how do you live in Beijing or China and you turn creativity, a love of culture, a love of fun stuff, a love of technology into a viable career or into a business. The three people we've got speaking cover a huge variety of fields, from stand-up comedy, rock music, design, IT, journalism, freelance writing, and a number of other things, including raising pot-bellied Vietnamese pigs, in the case of Richard.
Or just pot-bellies.
Or just pot-bellies, yeah. Well, one by one, I'd like to actually just go through a kind of biography of our speakers, because I think in some ways, I hope that's what people can get out of this experience, is see what types of things these people have done in order to get where they are. And we'll explain where they are, I guess, in the course of that. So let's start with Dominic.
So we're going to start with Kaiser, I think. He's much better than I am. All right, I'll start.
You're blonde, I think you go first.
Okay, so what I'm doing in biography.
My first question is, what is plastered?
What is plastered?
I am.
I think we're clear on this point. Plastered T-shirts was a business I started 2.5 years ago. One very simple creative idea, which was to use Chinese imagery, iconic imagery, and throw it back at the Chinese consumer to show them that the images that lie around their daily lives, the objects, the tickets, the stickers, the illegal adverts, were as cool and as beautiful and as interesting as anything that could come from the West. It was essentially to create a street brand that Beijing could call its own, and that's what we did, and we seem to have done it quite well.
And where do you sell your products now?
We have two physical shops, one on Cheung, where we started off, another one in Smoke Alley, Hohai. We also sell out of Singapore, Seattle in America, Germany, two different outlets there, and London, and about to be in Japan.
How long have you been in China?
I've been here 17 years now.
And what do you do?
It's like a sin.
I'm coming up on my 14th anniversary, so I'm feeling the guilt. But what did you do before you started Plastered? Only the parts suitable for family consumption, please. You're at a business school.
Okay, since I arrived with $200 in a backpack in 1993. I've pretty much always pursued entrepreneurial ideas and creative ideas. In 1995, I started my first business here, which was doing market research, primarily for no booze here, the cigarette business.
Market research or
market research.
So you weren't going to bars and doing cigarettes and whiskey?
That was another element of the business, but generally it was providing market information on how cigarettes sold around China, especially the north of China, where I specialise. I did that for 5 years. It was a very successful business, which I managed to sell and then take many years off. After that, I pursued many ideas, most of which failed. And then in 2006 I started Plastered T-shirts, which was my first go at fashion, design and clothing. And it's been my biggest success.
Now, you recently won the British Chamber of Commerce British Business Award, the Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. And well done, congratulations.
Not that many Brits in Panda.
Yeah, well, thank you, that's the case. But nonetheless, you went to the award ceremony, and Prince Andrew was at the award ceremony, and you managed to... Oh, Richard, please.
Richard Robinson, everyone.
Welcome. No problem, no problem. So you insulted the prince.
Yes.
Why did you insult the prince?
It's very rare in my life that I get an opportunity to be on a stage in front of royalty.
Second time.
Yes. I grew up, and you might tell if there's any Brits in the audience from my accent, I grew up in that sort of institution with private school. I'd never met royalty, and I had the rare chance to meet royalty on that evening. I didn't think I was going to win an award, and it seemed like a great chance to insult the royal family. I think they're a perfect example of how not to influence our younger generations. It's a royal family, and they're not elected, a bunch of idiots, and far too much money, and the taxpayer pays for it. So the taxpayers pay for his visit to Beijing. I think an insult was due.
Okay, enough said. One last question for you. What do you attribute your success to? I mean, I don't really know if you're successful, but at least the British Chamber of Commerce does think you're successful, so you must have done something right. What did you do right?
First of all, Jeremy, I know you think I'm successful.
Oh,
for a long time. And you envy me. So in so many ways, it's terrible. It's terrible that you've done this in front of the public. But the success has been in that we had a very creative and fresh idea. In China, creativity, I think, is very well respected. And if you can come up with a fresh and interesting idea, the Chinese customers really love it. What we managed to do was come up with an idea that hadn't been done before. We executed it very well. We also were very lucky in that we grew up on a hutong that was also booming, and we were probably the first clothing outlet on that store. So a lot of luck, as it is with anyone in business, as it was with Bill Gates or anybody. It's not always that you're a genius. It's that you've been in the right place at the right time and put in some hard hours. And I attribute Plastered's success to working hard, coming up with a creative idea, and being in the right place at the right time.
Okay, one last quick question, which just requires a few words and answers. Are you planning to grow the business into a massive multinational? Are you going to become American Apparel, or do you want to run a kind of family-style business that keeps you in a nice lifestyle in this lovely city? Everything's chill and make enough money. What's the aim?
As much as I like to smoke pot and do nothing, I have 3 children, and there's a responsibility on my shoulders to make a business happen. And as an entrepreneur, you always like to see your business build and go beyond the city that you built it. I would like to see Plastered's concept go to other cities and develop like it has in Beijing. It's all down to whether me as an individual is able to do that. I think as it is with consultancies, generally you can only build to that one person's capability. If Plastered is going to be a success internationally and continue to grow, it's going to be down to my skills as an entrepreneur and whether I can delegate and manage properly. I would like to see it go further, and I think we have good business practices. We've always given a good percentage of our profits.
All right, that's too long.
We've always given a good percentage of our profits to charities, and I would like to see that happen in other cities. I think we're a good business model, and I think we're fair and a decent practice. And if we can go on and do that in other countries, then fantastic. Enough.
Okay, Richard, you didn't kind of get the intro, so we're just going to throw you in deep end with your biography. How long have you been in China? We just want to know what you've done here and what you know about starting businesses and something about comedy. So when did you arrive in China?
So I've been here for 12 years in Greater China. I showed up in Hong Kong in '96, China Light, and I've been here in the mainland for the last 8 years. I first came here in '93. I took the train through Siberia, overland from Switzerland, Ukraine, Moscow, Siberia to China. The idea was to do kind of a big overland trip, and then I came here to China. Epiphany, fell in love with the place. And then,
what was the epiphany?
you know, I had spent 3 years after college as a working traveling bum, just working my way around the world, just doing different jobs. And I was an English teacher in Prague right after the revolution. I loved Eastern Europe, and I thought, wow, maybe that's I thought Eastern Europe would be a terrific place to go. Maybe after I got my MBA and got a little more serious in my life. So I was like, had that idea of a place that had a lot of growth. And I think in '93, people were still looking towards Japan, even though then, you know, the recession had started in '91. People weren't as focused on China. China was maybe even like a Peace Corps destination. It wasn't really hot at all. And the second I got here, I just, you know, the journal, the buzz, you know, I was like, wow, this is China. This is really amazing. You know?
So then how did you go from that into becoming a tech entrepreneur?
Then I ended up traveling around, you know, Asia for another couple of months, and no other place really had the same impact on me. Then I went to school in the Netherlands. I got my MBA at the Rotterdam School of Management. That was August of '94, and working in the school library. And my buddy brought in a little 1.4 meg disc with the skull and crossbones on it. Installed Mosaic, you know, the predecessor of Netscape, and I took my first trip on the web. And I remember just seeing that screen paint, you know, slowly, and I was like, "Wow, what is this? A graphic you have in the disc?" And he's like, "No, this is a website from, you know, in South Africa." And I thought, "Wow, this is absolutely amazing." Sunside, South Africa, the first website in Africa, and I thought that's, you know, my sort of second epiphany. So
we have some kind of yuan fund.
So
China Internet Epiphanies connect with South Africa.
South Africa, yes. And I had this terrific professor in college who said, you know, follow your joy. If you find something you find joy from, you can extract joy from, just pursue that, and you'll be able to turn it into some kind of a livelihood. So I thought, okay, China, internet, let's just try to do that. I did my summer internship at the Hong Kong Trade Development Council in the Netherlands. Came over to Hong Kong for a couple of weeks to present my bullshit findings in my internship, and I thought, wow, I have this, you know, I can just show up here and start to do something in the internet space, and that's what I did in '96.
Which was what?
Well, I showed up in '96. I actually spent 4 months in Africa, riding a bicycle through Africa, another African connection, and I showed up in Hong Kong in '96 to start my career, to be an internet guy, and someone had sort of forgotten to tell the internet to show up before I did. There wasn't really nothing going on. There was maybe 40,000 people in China on the internet. You know, a couple of million in Hong Kong, was a small market. And I spent 5 months just broke as the 10 Commandments, just trying to find a job. And I got really lucky. There was this company in New York that had been around since the late '80s doing interactive stuff on my CompuServe. They built the first website for Netscape, first banner ad on the web. And they opened up a Hong Kong office to build the first website for HSBC. So I got a job. We flew 2 guys from New York, and I hounded the shit out of them until they got me a job. They hired me, and I did that for 3 years.
And then we still got on to this.
Okay, so I'm sorry, let's talk about. Sure. So I started this internet networking group. It was called I&I. Started really small, and then it grew to a 20,000 person organization with you know, members with 15 cities around Asia. And basically, you know, like Jack Ma and Jerry Yang, and you know, all these people come and talk about internet stuff. So it was a terrific sort of epicenter to meet people. And I met these 2 guys, and their elevator pitch was GeoCities for Chinese. Today it would be Facebook for Chinese, or MySpace for Chinese. It's called renren.com, and a little seed funding. And so I was the first exec, the first VP they hired, and we got 37 million in funding, and we grew. Oh, hold the mic a little closer. I'm sorry. Yeah, we had about 37 million in funding, and we were a community-based site here in China, and We grew about 400 people. We listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Then we got acquired. And through that, I moved up to Beijing. So that was my first real sort of, I wasn't a founder of the company, but I was really involved in all the aspects, and I knew that from there I wanted to become an entrepreneur.
So basically, what you did was you arrived in Hong Kong, you got involved with I&I, and because of that, you schmoozed all the influential people in the early internet years, and you knew all the influential internet people, so you could party that into a career in tech. Is that?
Well, I guess, I'm sort of a naturally social guy, so I thought, well, one thing I can do is start a networking group, and through that, learn more about the industry, share. It's something you can do early in your career that, your social life and your business life is kind of a blur, and I think increasingly so. But then why not parlay that into something? A lot of people said, hey, you should start an internet business. I had been working 2 years, and I'd seen people get funded and who were like a sysadmin, and then they became a CEO, and I thought, I don't want to do that. I'll drive that spaceship, I'll crash that spaceship. I want to, be part of some other crew that has funding, and then, then I can learn and sort of, grow with that company, with the idea that I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
So let's go fast forward. What are you doing right now? What is Kooky Panda?
So Kooky Panda is a mobile, social casual mobile gaming company. We create casual flash games for mobile phones that are social.
And it's your own company.
It is. So after the Ren experience, I was up in Beijing, and I started a mobile game company with some investors, and I ran that for 2 years. And you started a different company, and then I changed the.
So you stole the company. That's not unusual in the media business.
Pulled the carpet off from underneath him. And I've been in that internet, / mobile gaming space ever since. I've seen what's sort of been happening in the Japanese space, and which is basically Flash has been embedded in the mobile phone in a way that hasn't happened outside of Japan yet. It's starting to now. When Flash got embedded in the browser, it's really become kind of a de facto presentation layer on the internet, and now it delivers, the vast majority of video, the vast majority of casual gaming is all done through Flash. So once Flash is actually embedded in the mobile phone, which is starting to happen, it will really become, I think, the de facto sort of presentation layer and also gaming and video layer for mobile.
And then you'll buy a private jet. With that thought, let's move on to Kaiser. So Kaiser, you quite well known in this town and beyond for a few different reasons. When I first met you, you were famous because you were a member of, in the 90s, I think it was China's best known rock band, Tang Dynasty. Then, since then, you've been a bureau chief for a highly influential American technology magazine, the China bureau chief. You've worked on numerous technology startups. You sit on the advisory boards of several big, mostly American, I think, and some Chinese internet companies. And you give advice to at least one Chinese internet company. So you basically were a dude with long hair who maybe retired. And you somehow managed to convince the world that you still are. And you still have convinced the world that you're kind of kosher. So, maybe that's the wrong word. How did you do that?
Okay, so the trick is to really keep a very clear demarcation line between your avocation, that is that which you love, or what you do sort of out of passion, and your vocation, which is that which you do to put food on your fucking table and daily grind. It's not always that bad. I got extremely lucky. I think that's been a common theme through all of us here. Right place at the right time. I showed up here for the very first time as a lad at 15 in 1981 and took my second trip here in 86. And in that time, the second time I was a sophomore in college and a little more sort of concerned about what I was going to do with my life. And I had seen the direction of things. I knew that China was on what was essentially a irreversible path. I thought I'd hitch my wagon to it, and so Like so many other American-born Chinese, I was initially resentful of the Saturday morning Chinese classes that took me away from terrific shows like Super Friends and Land of the Lost. But I ended up getting very serious about China, about learning about China's experiences in the modern age. Studied Chinese history pretty extensively as an upper division undergraduate. And I got it into my head, having been playing in a rock band in college, that I was going to come out here as some kind of a metal missionary. And that I was going to come out here and find the rock musicians that were here. And I managed to do so. As soon as I graduated in 1988, I headed out here and managed to meet some really terrific, promising rock musicians who, as it turns out, were really sort of central to the emerging scene. And I was able to become quite close with them and start a number of musical projects here. One of them was Tang Dynasty, a band that we actually formally started in 1999 under pretty comical auspices that one day I will share with all of you. But they went on to become big and famous, largely in my absence. After the mischief in '89, I kind of hightailed it out the country and sought refuge as so many young and largely talented people in graduate school in the United States. Having wasted a few years there, I came back.
You got an MA in Asian Studies, right?
I did. I got an MA in Asian Studies, which I highly recommend that none of you ever do. I came back
I
here.
put a word in for my sponsor here, like maybe do an MBA at Cheung.
But it ain't rocking. So I came back in '96 at the behest of my bandmates who wanted me to help stitch the band back together. Heroin had cut a pretty horrible swath through the rock scene, and it didn't leave the band I was playing entirely untouched. And being a nice, clean-living American boy, I came back and helped them out with that. I spent 3 years from '96 to '99 playing in that band, and then in '99 we had what you call in the business a Yoko Ono problem. And compounding that was this little incident whereby American bombs fell on the Chinese embassy in Belgrade, and I spoke a little out of turn into a Phoenix television camera, saying that I was aggrieved about this accident. You couldn't have called it an accident and it got away with it. So suddenly all my bandmates, who were a bunch of political idiots for the most part, suddenly got religion and were very into nationalism and stuff. And so I found myself sort of realizing I ought to pursue some of my post-dynastic scenarios. One of which presented itself very, very lovingly. It was the internet, right? The internet was this great catchphrase that showed up in China around 1999 for anyone that didn't have any other real talents.
Still is.
Remarkably, it's been there for all of us. It's been there for so many of us. And so I managed to finagle a job as editor-in-chief of a short-lived Chinese internet company called ChinaNow.com. We were around from summer of '99 until about May of 2001. And in that time, I was editor-in-chief, still one of the best jobs I've ever had. We had a terrific time. And in that time, I did two things. One is I educated myself about the internet, and secondly, I learned to write a little better, or quicker anyway. I was a graduate student who was fearful. I was quaking how I had to actually have my writing exposed to the public. And now, I have to do it, once a month, and I blog pretty frequently, so it's gotten to be something I'm comfortable with. That fell apart in 2001. I went to a couple of like a lot of .com refugees, into mobile ventures, which I found were really off mission for me. It wasn't really something that I was passionate about. What I was more interested in was reporting. In the early 2000s, beginning around '99, I had the good fortune to be dating a journalist who, and through her, I met a lot of the other journalists, and I figured out what it was that they hated more than anything to write about. The beat they passed around among one another like a hot potato was telecoms. It had all these ugly acronyms in it, and it was all this technical jargon, and they were definitely afraid of it, and there weren't any sexy stories to be written about it. So I figured I was going to own that bitch. I was going to own telecoms, the internet, anything that had sort of a high barrier to entry, where journalists didn't really like to write about it, and that paid, that people were actually willing to buy stories that were about the internet. So I wrote what turned out to be the first story that pointed to the recovery and the eventual profitability of the 3 big internet portals in China. And I went on, that was for Time magazine in 2002. After that, there were a series of stories that led me to land a job with a pretty reputable magazine as bureau chief. So I would recommend to anybody who's interested in freelance writing is find a niche that people don't want to write about. This city is crawling with people who fancy themselves to be arts and culture writers and travel writers, but there aren't enough people who can write a decent business story. And that's what actually people would pay money for. And yeah, it's a bit of selling your soul, but managed to also keep in parallel, again with a very good wall and avocation alive. I started playing in another band in 2001 called Chopschticks, Spring and Autumn. We don't use the name because it sounds like George Winston or something. We didn't use the English name. But it's a metal band. And we just actually came off tour. We did a 9-city tour in about 3 weeks all over China. We put out an album in 2006, and that's still going. And I guess to bring us quickly up to date, 2 years ago I was approached by people from Ogilvy who were interested in hiring me because of my experience in reporting technology as a digital strategist at Ogilvy, and they offered me what is known as an FEP. Fat expat package. That's a really big thing. They no longer exist. It's a really sad thing. But having gone from slacker to exec dude, I'm now exiting Ogilvy. Thursday is my last day, and I will now re-embrace my inner slacker for a while we're going to start with economic downturn, work on some writing projects, work on some music projects, and continue doing a lot of consulting for a lot of the companies that I've been working with.
Thank you, Kaiser. I think useful information in that. So I want to ask the 3 of you some quick questions and then hand over to the floor for any questions you like. And don't feel restrained. I'm going to in fact pour them some more wine.
So we won't feel restrained.
So make sure they don't feel restrained. But let me start with a question of some concern to me. Are your careers all connected with the fact that you all have stable family lives? You know, I mean, we sold this event on the kind of premise that you were like funky, creative shit, business, blah blah. But actually, all 3 of you are like really conservative family men. Do you think this has anything to do with your careers, the success of your careers? Sorry, Richard, you're looking the most nervous.
Well, I mean, I guess we're all on the wrong side of 40, I guess. So. How old are you? All right, so it's about time we started making our own pizza. Right? So I have a local wife and 2 little guys made in China, and it's just kind of a byproduct of our lifestyle.
It's not part of your success as an entrepreneur.
We're breeders. I don't know.
I've got a mic that seems to work. I think having a family is always part of a success. You know, you grow up, you have kids, you have a wife that inspires you, and children that inspire you. So it's all part of the success, I think, for sure. As an individual here for the first 14 years, you're not as driven as you are when you have a wife and kids, for sure.
You know, I'll tell you something. I think, we're part of the same entrepreneurs group. There's this group called Entrepreneurs Organization. It's the world's largest entrepreneurs group, and we started the Beijing chapter here. And we had a session today, this morning actually. We had this one session every morning, 4 hours. And the founder of EO 20 years ago, he has this great book, and he talks about how CEO is really 1% creativity, vision, and really 99% alignment. Just getting everybody on the bus and just driving in the right direction. And I think when I was younger, I was much more like, I can't go to sleep tonight. I have to finish this myself, and just work till 3:30, wake up at 7:30, go off to another meeting. And now I actually feel like I'm much more productive because I have to go home and be with the kids, and I delegate a lot more, and I align things a lot more. So I think being a father of 2 kids and being an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily, it's not something that can really, it can actually enhance your entrepreneurial abilities.
Kids and the wife is obviously a major source of support. I wouldn't have been able to do anything without her. She's been my real good luck charm. The kids, it's great because I can shoo them away from my computer and say, Daddy has to work while we have to go live in the poorhouse. So they have a pretty clear understanding now that I have work I actually need to produce, and I have deadlines. And, I mean, it's tricky incentive, like any Chinese American, I fully expect that. I'll beat the shit out of them if they don't both get into Harvard or Stanford. And that's how it goes, right? With Chinese American. You got piano lessons, Chinese lessons.
Who's the stand-up comedian? He's got all the jokes.
Yeah, no, he does.
He doesn't get cut off either, which I did.
You did?
Yeah, it's just happened.
Sorry, I was... It's because you're British, Dominic. As my former colonial master, I have problems with British people. One last question before I open this to the floor. Dominic, if you want to say anything about anything at all, or insult me, or anything at all, is Beijing a good place for creative businesses? And if it is, what's good about it? Start with you.
I've got a mic. It's the perfect place to be. You've got a creative idea. Firstly, Beijing is the creative hub of China. I truly believe that. The Beijing attitude is a fantastic attitude, and it's great that it's creative. So, to make an idea happen here is very easy. Plastered T-shirts, I'll be very honest with you in terms of figures. I started Plastered T-shirts 2.5 years ago. I put in 40,000 RMB. I got a shop front. I got a shop front for a year, in fact, and I got 1,500 T-shirts in the shop, and I was open. This year, we've turned over $500,000, and we started that business 2.5 years ago. I'm not used to this stuff. You can make something happen here. First of all, it's a very creative city. There's inspiration all around you. I believe that as somebody who lives in a very visual world. And secondly, you can get something done for nothing here. You really can. It's very cheap. You can find someone who drives a taxi. You say, can you produce me some T-shirts? I know someone that can. And he's got a brother and a sister. And the T-shirts are at the door. And your business is started. Now you might start off with some kind of sub-quality product, but then you work into the business. You find out where the good stuff is coming from, and then you build a business on that. You go, every day changes, and you've got to go with it. As an entrepreneur, that's a fantastic environment, and you couldn't be in a better place. So if you've got an idea out there, one thing I'll say to you, if you've got an idea, if you don't do it, you're an idiot. Because this is the place to be, this is the place where you can get it done. And if you go back to your homes in Europe or America, wherever you might be from, you're going to lose that opportunity, because this is where it can happen, and you can do it grassroots here. I didn't have a woofie, I didn't have my own enterprise. I started by doing handshakes with local landlords and government officials, smoking a lot, drinking a lot, and getting things done. You can take an attitude here, you can get it done. I promise you can laugh, but look at me, I'm the one that's sat in front of you right now. One of the highlights.
How many claim that?
Okay. I think we should just go to the floor, because I think that was a pretty resounding yes of an answer that Beijing is a great place to do creative business.
Yeah, neither of us would disagree with that.
Yeah. So it's a recession, you won't get a job with a corporation, so either start your own business or do an MBA at sorry, I know that's really bad sell, but so let's take some questions from the floor.
Yeah, I want to know, first of all, very good, interesting, fascinating presentations. Just quickly, how would your stories have been different if you had started out in today's Chinese economy rather than the economy that you were working?
Good question. I think that, it's been said many times, but 10 years from now, if you hadn't come here and started, you'd be full of regret, just as you are, just as so many people are who look enviously at the country came here 10 years ago and started businesses. The opportunities have not receded. They have not by any means disappeared. We're still in the very early stages of China's massive upswing, especially in creative industries. There's opportunity here galore. Absolutely. Opportunity here galore.
I'll be honest with you, in the market that I'm in, China's a very fast-moving economy, and people pick up on everybody's ideas very quickly. You can throw a stone in Beijing and you're going to hit an entrepreneur. With the idea that I came up with, there's already many people doing it. So if I was to start now, I certainly wouldn't be in the position that I am now.
A different business.
But you know what? There's so many markets that haven't been tapped yet. If you can sit at home and get some time to yourself and think straight and be free, you can come up with a good idea.
Richard, would you like to comment?
Sure. I mean, the mobile game company in 2001 was in the weakest sort of .com or funding nuclear winter, and but the beautiful part is when you find yourself sort of cast adrift on permafrost, as it were, you can reduce your caloric intake and you become omnivorous. So you can start doing stuff.
So many metaphors.
Yes,
I
don't know. I was hoping you could clarify.
Where's the money?
No, but basically, let's just say you're a company here. You can reduce your burn rate so low.
You mean you can be really cheap and still survive?
Yeah, I mean, your monthly cost can be so low, and you can generate revenue. For instance, say by doing outsourcing or doing something maybe non-core, you could do more cheaply and perhaps better here. I think that's one sort of argument for starting something now. But it's always the time to start a business. There's never not a good time, I think, to start a business. There's always funding. There's always a market. I mean, it depends on what business you're choosing to start. Display advertising, or perhaps a new retail entrant. Terrible timing. Perhaps software outsourcing, or maybe something with performance.
Now the stock comes down.
Go for it. Yes.
Kaiser mentioned separating your avocation from your vocation, making the line clear, and I wanted to see if you could elaborate on why that's necessary and how.
Okay, so here the big problem is that you don't get a lot of reality checks. You're here on your own, and you think that every idea you've got, that you're going to be. Look, I've said it before. That there are unfinished novels and screenplays on hard drives all over Chaoyang, right? You don't have that reality check. You don't have somebody, a good friend or your family here necessarily who's going to tell you, don't quit your day job. So you have to assume that responsibility yourself. You have to take a very, very good look at whether that application has the potential, has any chance in fucking hell of turning into something you can actually make money. I can probably say, have never banked on the idea that as a musician I can make a decent living. There's just no way. I played in the most famous rock band in China. We sold 8 million CDs or whatever, and I was not by any stretch of the imagination wealthy as a result of that. I always knew that I had to have a bankable skill beside that. It's not a good idea unless you're Richard Yates to decide to go pen a novel and think that you're going to be able to sell the thing and just give up on your day job entirely. It's pretty ruthless that way. And there are a lot of people out here who think that this is Paris all over again. That we're living in the age of the movable feast, and that we're everyone. Among us there are Hemingways and F. Scott Fitzgerald.
No, sorry, Twitter destroyed all of that. There's no more Hemingway, no more literature. So it's only Twitter now.
Oh no. It's called Twitteration.
I would like to just change to Dominic, who in some ways is somebody whose avocation and vocation appear to have merged. Maybe it's a field that's a little bit easier because you're looking at design, which is by its very nature a very commercial art form. What do you have to say about that? Is it your avocation and your vocation, what you do?
I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what you mean by avocation.
Are you passionate about T-shirts?
Of course I'm passionate.
Designs and things that you do.
I wouldn't have succeeded if I wasn't passionate about it. And I believe that in any business. If you're not passionate about it, then don't fucking do it. You've got to find something you're passionate about and push it and make it happen. Or you just play a numbers game and become an investor. In creativity and making a creative business happen, you have to be passionate about it. It's not going to succeed otherwise, and people can smell that right away by looking at your artwork or whatever you do. I've always been passionate about what I've done. It's one of the biggest reasons behind our success. If I wasn't, then I don't believe for a minute that I'll be sat here.
But But what you're passionate about happens to be something that does have a fairly good commercial model, unlike writing novels.
I didn't know that when I started. I mean, when I started Plastered T-shirts, I can tell you the first month I sold about 12 T-shirts. You know, it's if I had thought, well, Christ, this isn't a business model, I would have given up. It was a passion for me. It was an interest. It was something I loved, and I put my heart and soul into it. If it wasn't going to happen, it wasn't going to happen a year down the road, but I was going to give it my best, and that's what I did. And I believe that's how you should pursue something that you feel passionate about. Put your best into it and work very hard at it. And if it doesn't happen, you can look back and say that I gave it my best. And that's how I truly feel about my business.
This question might be for Dominic, but maybe the other ones also have some similar experiences. Dominic said that he had tried a number of businesses in the past and it sort of blown up in his face or not worked out. I'm curious, the emphasis tonight seems to be like on the idea and timing. I wanted to do this, I got lucky. I'm curious if there are any experiences in your past, any of the businesses you tried in the past or ideas that you think could have succeeded if you had learned one of the lessons earlier that you applied to Plastered or other projects.
I'll be honest with you, Blake. I don't see myself as a businessman. I never have. I always see myself as a person with ideas. Many of my ideas didn't work. Whether it was the right time or the right place, I couldn't give you an answer right now. It just didn't work. But with each idea, I gave it my full. It's looking back and trying to analyze it. I would say it's impossible to tell. I tell you, I can't really answer your question there because I'm not analytical enough to be able to answer it. Sorry. But a good question.
Jeremy, this is actually for you. Could you please talk a little bit about Danwei and how do you survive in the Chinese media environment not getting closed down?
I'm the moderator, so I could actually just refuse to answer this question. Danwei survives because we're not very big, we're quite small. We are primarily English. And most of our sources of our information are from the Chinese internet and media. So our stuff generally comes pretty censored, for the most part. We don't piss anybody off, really. And because we tend to write mostly about what's going on within the mainland media and internet, we don't cross a lot of the lines that are really red lines. This Chinese word jianghu, it's my favorite Chinese word, jianghu. It means like rivers and lakes, literally, but it basically refers to like gangsters in like old-time martial arts novels. But people also use it about the media business in particular, other kinds of any scene where there's kind of rules and you should know the rules. Well, I think in the Chinese media business, if you want to stick around, you've got to know the rules, which takes some time to learn. And I put in my time, like 10. I don't even want to know how many years in the Chinese media business. I mean, it's a nasty, brutish business full of snakes and dogs and people who will stab you in the back. And once you realize that, you can just calm down and try and work it out. So that's my quick answer.
My question is for whoever wants to answer. I'm just wondering about the challenges of starting a business in Beijing. I mean, we're talking a lot about how great it is to start one here. I've lived in China for a few years, and I find sometimes you come across some things that can be, so frustrating to deal with. And I'm just wondering if you guys have faced that with your businesses, starting your businesses, things that you might not meet in a Western country.
Is it frustrating starting a business now?
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
I'll start by answering your question on a very grassroots level. I think these other two labs could answer it from a different perspective, but I've always done grassroots business. I've never had the money to set up a Ogilvy or do something fantastic like that, at least until now. I think if you apply yourself and you learn how things are done here, you use your guanxi, you use your handshake very well, and you get to spend the right time with the right people and gain confidence from them and put trust in them. That you can start a business from grassroots here. You can. But what you really have to do is apply yourself and learn the culture here, which is where you live, which is what you should do anyway. And if you can do that, then you can start a business the same like the guy that started the Xiaomai booth in the apartment block building. You just have to apply yourself and learn how they did it. Essentially, that I think is the most beautiful way to do business. The other way, Richard, I think, could inform you on with angel investors and other things like that, but I've never done.
I think even, I think there's probably four methods. One is Jeremy, I'm sorry. What's
you can't catch?
Yeah.
No, I can't.
Another one is to sort of, go for the permission rather than forgiveness method. The third, which I follow, is to have a Chinese wife. She can really deal with that. But there's a fourth sort of approach, which is just setting up a business and not really needing much at all. Perhaps you have a business that leverages the high-skill, low-cost base here, and you just set it up. I have a good friend, Fritz Lamopoulos, who's a serial entrepreneur here in China, and he told me about this idea. It's called Chunamar.com. It's the number 2.
He's got
yeah, for 1,000 kuai, whatever. He got some free press. But it was he was telling me about his idea, which was sort of like a butterfly flapping around in his head, and he pinned it down and put it on paper. He just hired somebody. He just got somebody, just got an employee, didn't register anything, didn't have, sublet office space with a friend, got a white box. I got a company. I got an employee. Oh shit, I have an employee, I have a company. I better start giving that person direction. You can just start that way. Unless you're really digging into
I think that is worth noting that, I've run more illegal businesses in China than most people have hot breakfasts. It's quite easy to do. You don't have to ask for permission to start telling people that you do something. So in some ways, I have to say that I think opening a business in China is a lot easier than in most countries, because you can, in fact, you could open one right now. You could take this mic and say, "Hi everybody, I'm selling my sweater for $20." And nobody's going to stop you. And it's only when you start making money that you really deal with the problems. Which maybe is why I tended to avoid making money.
I say on that note, I met a Chinese entrepreneur about a year back who started. He was a guy in his late 40s. He was fat, he had a brush over, and he had this idea to set up gyms, around China. And the way he did it was he contacted all these management offices who had offices in the basement underneath all these xiaoqus on the outskirts of Beijing. And he contacted them and says, give me this space for free, for 3 months, and I'm going to make it into a gym. He got all the space for free. He contacted the gym company that was making gymnasium, workout stuff in South China for export. He got all that for free for 2 months. And he got all these young people to go on and sell these gym memberships on the street, and they were making their own little bit on the side. He set up a business, and he ended up setting up over 50 gyms around the outskirts of Beijing without spending a penny, purely by making deals with management offices, with gym companies, and with people out on the street selling gym memberships. And he made his money in 2 years.
Don't let that motherfucker put away the bike.
He could put it away, but he did it.
It actually pisses me off when I hear that I see the article where it says Chinese people aren't creative. I think the creativity here is just amazing. And also the business that I've started, Kooky Panda, we started with $40,000. We ran for a whole year for $40,000. And I started another outsourcing company for $33,000. It has 80 employees now. We'll do $2 million in revenue. It's cash flow positive. You can see things so cheaply here. It's just mind-boggling. The monthly burn that a company can have here is equivalent of a weekly or even a daily burn in something about it.
So I just wanted to ask a quick question. One is, could you speak more about how to build Wenji if you're starting up a business? And the other one is, how do you deal with piracy, or people trying to steal your idea, and then the moment you're starting, your business, how do you deal with that if it's happened to you?
Well, I think the notion that Guanxi is somehow proprietary to China is just utter bullshit. There isn't a country in the world where there's a network where your social capital isn't worth something. So throw that out. And I think that you so many businesses that come here, I've seen come here and fail, just obsess on this Wenchi thing. They think that they need to hire a government relations officer. They think that they need to spend all this money on lavish gifts to these petty bureaucrats who really don't need a thing. We're moving. I mean, things are very, very different than they were when most of these stupid business books were written. I think that you should leave your copy of Sun Tzu's Art of War at home before you get out of the plane. There isn't much use to it. Now that said, of course, I mean, approach it like you would anything else. I mean, it's important in any movie, in any city that you're in any place where, to know the people who are going to be helpful to you and to have good relations with them. You scratch their back, they'll scratch yours. It's no different. I mean, I'd like to see the word wench abolished from vocabulary.
I'm actually going to step in and buffoon Kaiser there, because I mean, not totally buffoon, but I think that this is going to sound awful in many ways, but you don't have the checks in place here that you might have in the United States and Europe. And Guanxi can then go a little step further. I truly believe. I think local government here is particularly susceptible to Guanxi more than, well, I don't know the United States, but I can know Britain. I believe that it's a developing economy here, and the opportunities in terms of Guanxi are more rife than they are in Europe. The reason for that is the checks right now aren't in place, and that might sound awfully corrupt, but I believe in Guanxi right now, and it is worked very well for me. For sure, in America it's called in America it's called lobbying. In China it's called corruption. I wouldn't know how to lobby, but I would certainly know the corruption side.
So why don't you forget about Guanxi and talk about piracy and people stealing your ideas? Because you've worked in a lot of businesses that are
piracy, forget about it. Just fully embrace it. There's no way you can ever combat privacy. I mean, piracy. There's just and privacy for that matter. Because if you really think about it, we're all moving towards an extremely transparent society because we all used to live in a village.
Just a show of hands. Who here has never bought a pirated DVD? So fuck all of you.
No, saying fuck on stage is my thing, right? Fuck once.
I've never bought a pirated Tang Dynasty.
Okay, back to the Sarah's topic. Richard, piracy.
No, there's really, you can leverage piracy to actually be, for instance, my company, Kooky Panda, what we do is we give away games for free. And in the Java space, we make Java-based games for mobile phones. Very proprietary. Kaiser's an angel investor. We venture, so whatever it is.
Full disclosure.
Or like a devil investor, but yeah, that's another story. But, I think really embracing the whole sort of super distribution that comes with piracy. I met this guy who has a company in Hong Kong, does films there. He releases the DVDs with the films. He puts advertising before the movie on the DVD in the packaging, and he prices it the same as a Bellbot DVD, pirate DVD. Yeah, I think that's pretty brilliant. I think with piracy, you just got to move faster and perhaps either embrace it or just forget about it. In any case, as an entrepreneur, it's rare that your competition is going to hurt you anyway. It's almost always certainly illusion. It's some sort of external expectations.
One last thought to that. I think I've seen quite a lot of businesses where people have started with a good idea and they were the first one and they fail, and the second one who stole the idea ends up winning. So that's the way it is. I think you can't do business based on ideas in China. You have to have execution. An idea is not worth very much, which is the way it is. Yeah, although.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you about bureaucracy and obstacles of bureaucracy and how you've been able to balance creativity with bureaucracy. This comes having spent the entire day waiting for visas, so I'm a little biased when it comes to this sort of thing. But I'm just curious in terms of setting up businesses. You say that sometimes it just makes sense to start and not worry about those things, but what if you need, say, a license for the place that you are, or a visa so someone can stay there, or to do certain specific things that require that sort of legitimacy. Do you feel that the networks are what you really need to make those things move forward, or is it something else?
I would say my experience out of bureaucracy comes total freedom. They tend to confuse themselves. So you can work around the bureaucracy very, very quickly. If there was no bureaucracy and everything was very clean cut and simple, it would be very hard to make your way around it. So the fact that we're living in a bureaucratic society means that you have even more chance to make something happen.
I'd also like to point out, as someone who doesn't hold an American passport and needs a visa to go to the great country of the United States, that applying for a visa to the U.S. Embassy is the most nightmarish Kafka-esque experience of the fucking time. So, you know, it's not so bad in China. Visas are quite easy at least. Any more to add to the bureaucracy?
I walked out of the American Embassy after having added pages to my son's passport, and I feel like, get me out of here into freedom. I feel like I can really breathe on it.
Back to the People's Republic.
Yeah, I feel like I have way more elbow room here than I lived in Europe for 5 years. I was born and raised in Boston. I feel like, yeah, sure, you know, if you're in the media industry or in the internet industry, if you're under the scrutiny of the Chinese government, but who really wants to be in those industries if you're not Chinese, to be honest with you? I mean, how many really, besides yourself, how many other really successful entrepreneurs are there in that space? There's so many more rich veins to be tapped besides those areas. I mean, there's really a lot of bureaucracy we can cut through if you're in the internet and media space, but you know, is that really where you want to go? Is that really where the opportunity is? I've been here for 12 years and I've determined that my future is in outsourcing, using China as a high-skill, low-cost development base. I've been in India 8 times in the last 3 years, and all due respect to India, but China is the future. China's going to drink India's milkshake. Outsourcing to China. Yes, drink India's last. Yes, exactly.
It's a bumble, I see. Last question.
My name is Robin Adams. I have a question. I'm sorry I missed your name, but the connection with Entrepreneurs Organization.
Richard Robinson.
Okay, Richard. My question is, I know a few of the other guys that are members of Entrepreneurs or whatever it is, and since we're here to talk about the creative industry, I guess you're in outsourcing, right?
Well, that's one of the businesses I'm involved in. Yes.
Okay, well, in my viewpoint, I tend to see, I'm an entrepreneur, and I see all other entrepreneurs as very creative. But I think that outsourcing is probably not so creative, but it's just my feeling. And my question is, for most entrepreneurs probably, or certainly for me at least, the toughest thing is working with people, managing people, motivating people, and just dealing with people in general. I mean, we deal with people all day long, but we don't really realize how difficult it is until we have to squeeze some productivity out of them. And my question is, as if you're engaged in the creative sector, or if you're not, can you draw any parallels or any lessons in terms of how people in creative areas, I guess 10 years ago it might have been called the knowledge economy, how to motivate them, how to get them to do things? Is there any difference between these kind of industries and, you know, having an import-export company or a company that is a restaurant, although many restaurants are very creative? Can you share with us any tips or ideas or feelings, any of you, in terms of how to deal with people if you're in such a business that really depends on people that put 150% of their mind and their energy into whatever it is that you're trying to deliver?
So the question is essentially, how do you develop and build a creative team as opposed to another kind of team?
Well, I mean, you know, on one hand, I am involved in this outsourcing company, but I'm just on the board of directors and the founder of the company. And on the other sort of extreme end, which I've not brought up, is that I have this comedy show that I've been producing for a decade here in Greater China called Chopschticks, and that's sort of a way for me to exercise my creative muse. And I've gotten my ass kicked in so many different ways, just managing that business, live entertainment. But in the middle is this company that I have now, which is called Kooky Panda, which produces every day a new game or sort of animation for Flash. So we have 20 staff, and more than half of them are fully focused on creating these very visually compelling little vignettes on a daily basis. And my wife is actually the COO of the company. and she's local, and the entire staff is local. It's probably the first time where the CEO reports to the COO. But she's not necessarily a creative person, but she's really good at sort of building teams. One thing I found here in China, because my wife's Chinese and I have my Chinese family living with us, so I have I still can improve my Chinese skills, and I still have a lot to learn about Chinese society. But I sort of find that with Chinese staff, wonderful work. I absolutely love working with Chinese staff. And I think that there's a lot that can be sort of extracted from the sort of natural entrepreneurialism and sort of hard-working drive you get from Chinese staff. And one thing I found is that, sort of like I see with my wife, her mom kind of focuses on the negative, and then when they kind of go to school, the average Chinese person doesn't really question the teacher, and the teacher just kind of tells them things. Then they get their job, and then the boss is like the whole and just kind of says, okay, you do this, and just listen, and nobody questions. And I think when you really engage the staff and really do a lot of sort of training and real-time feedback, even negative or positive, then you can really just in real time see people blossom. And I've seen that in the last 8 years. And managing people sucks anyway, right? I mean, managing people sucks. It really, really does. It's really difficult to take your passion and vision as a company and really instill that into somebody on a daily basis. Because people are like, I want to chat with my friend on QQ, or I want to check out the nude pictures of Jiang Ziyi, or I want to find out what movies are there, right? People are lazy naturally, right? People don't want to work that hard because, whatever, it's just a job to most people, right? It's just the way it is, right? Anywhere in the world, it's just the way it is. So to really kind of instill that sort of passion in people, you really have to do a lot of staff events and really get people engaged on a real-time basis. That means a lot of micromanagement and a lot of microfeedback. That's my 2 cents.
I had a staff who last week wouldn't leave the office. She said, "Bravo, I want to talk with you." So what's up? She said, "Well, I want to know why I've been here for almost 2 years and haven't had a raise." And I said to her, "Well, you know what? You were hired to do this, and then your job sort of changed this way, and I've been giving you feedback all the time, and every time I ask you to do something, it doesn't really actually happen that way." And so I said, the truth be told, the reason I didn't give her a raise is because she knows too much about the company, and I would fire her. I'm waiting for her to leave. So anyway, I told her, my expectations for the needs of the company to grow are and it finally clicked. She wasn't waiting for a raise just because, she wasn't going to get a raise just because she'd been there for time, but until she actually produced some results. And the strangest thing happened last week. All of a sudden, she's like thinking on her own. She's doing things that even I never thought about before. And I thought, God, who's sooner, her or me?
Is that the question?
Hands up for you.
Okay, I think on that note, perhaps I should leave the stage before I say something. Thank you very, very much to our 3 panelists for their frank discussions. And we have this place, I think, available more or less until about just before 10. So if you want to hang around, even though the booth may be finished.
I'd like to cut in very briefly. I'd like to thank Jeremy for putting on such a fantastic event. In all the years that I've known Danwei, it has been the most informative and the most brilliant website in all my years from Beijing. And I think what you're doing this evening and what you're doing in Paris is not easy, and you're doing a great job, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Dominic, that's very, very kind of you. But I'm still going to have the last word. Our co-organizers and sponsors, Cheung, can you say that? Cheung Graduate School of Business, where you can do an MBA if all else fails. I'd also like to thank Ring and City Weekend for administrative support, Standards Group for some design. And thank you very much to all of you for coming here, and I hope to see you again soon in similar events. Thanks again to our panelists. One last round of applause.